So again, when you do this, there's actually two ways you could go about doing this. If you're a person who really hated the pen tool, I'm going to show you that you could do it in a couple ways. So I'm going to make an additional layer because if we have everything on the same layer, it's difficult to kind of click on items without clicking on like the template and things like that. So the first thing we'll do is I'm going to call this template, but I'll probably delete the template after we design the flag because the rest of it isn't that great. So now I'm going to add another layer, which is just like we did in InDesign, in Photoshop, and Illustrator, this icon right down here. And I'm going to call it newsletter. So that way I can have the difference. And remember, you can change the color. I like to sometimes have them different because if you have both of them as pale blue colors, it's difficult for you to see the difference in the binding box. So I'm going to show you two ways you could actually kind of go about doing this, and then I'll go back. I'll let you guys pick, and then we'll do the one way as a class. So I know some of you probably really hate the pen tool. Well, one thing you could do is you could actually just use the rectangle tool, draw one rectangle, and then I'll fill it later. And then I need to make that not go off the page. There we go. And then you could actually use the circle tool, and you could draw a circle. And so to make it perfect, I can try to use my rulers to make the shape the perfect circle, like the band. It's a great band. It's a band I have a tattoo of. And then now I have the circle. And then if I filled both these shapes with the same color, then I would never have had to touch the pen tool, which I know some of you probably never want to touch it again. So then you could just fill these shapes with the same color with no stroke. But if you had a stroke on these, then you're going to have an issue with the color. I could go to my color and I could change my color up to more of a green. Let's go this way. That looks pretty close. And I can say OK. Then I can switch it. But if I have a stroke on it, you're going to see that you're going to see the difference between them. So you don't want to do that. You could also just do this. I personally would, whoa, wrong layer. I would personally just actually use the pen tool, but that's probably because I kind of like the pen tool. But you could also go click, I could say stroke of none so I don't see it. Well, I guess I can try to fill it this way. If you have the fill when you're actually clicking, you are going to see it kind of start to appear. So I'm going to hold the shift key and click, shift key and click. I'm going to go here, click and hold, and drag my curve, pull, 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 let go, delete the handle, shift key to click again, shift again, shift again, and now I have my shape. Me personally, I would do it with the pen tool, but I know some of you probably do not like the pen tool, so I just wanted to show you that there's more than one way to actually do this on your newsletter. Which way do you want me to repeat? Pen tool or shape? Shape. Okay, I figured people hate the pen tool. I know. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I would pick a color. You can come over here and double click and pick a green color. So if you are going to use a newsletter and you know that you're going to use the similar colors on the front sheet as well as the back sheet, after we do this, I would add this to the CMK swatches. And it should pop up in my swatches. So again, to change the color, because if we're going to just do shapes, might as well just fill the colors. So you can go over here to your fill, over here in your tool palette, click, click, and it'll open up your color picker. Similar to the color picker that you saw in Photoshop and Illustrator, you can slide the bar around to kind of pick a color. I don't really care if it's green or not. You just need to make sure that we use the exact same color for the rest of the design. Now, actually, if we're going to design this for grassroots, we do need to think about your client, and the client does purple and green. Now, we would want whatever color you use to be the same color for the rectangle as well as the circle. I think I'm going to do green, and then I'm going to do a darker purple for the little circle. But you could do the opposite. You could do purple with green. So I'm going to find a green that looks pretty good, not too crazy colored. That's kind of good looking. I don't really like Kelly green very much though. And then I'm going to say add to swatches. I'm going to say okay. And then if I come over here to swatches, you're going to see I have this color here. And you can actually make a new group, and we can say click, click, and say grassroots. So again, what you do is you double click, pick your color, say add to swatch. Swatches are just like swatches like you see at the paint store. And then we're going to say okay. And then if you come over here to this window that says swatches, what has all the little squares, you can go down to the bottom and you'll notice this folder. The folder means you're going to put, things inside of it, right? So logically that means that you're going to be putting different colors in there. This will definitely help you out when you're designing because you want to use the exact same colors in the front of the newsletter as well as the interior page. So here then I could just come over here and click on this color. So if I'm going to add a purple later, I might as well add it now since I already have my swatches open. So now I'm going to go find a purple color because they use purple for their colors. It's kind of like around this color range-ish. Over here, double click this solid box right here where my mouse is moving right here underneath the magnifying glass. Then if I want to put this swatch in this folder, how do you think I get that swatch in that folder? Drag it. Drag to the folder, and now it's in the folder. And now I have my two colors that I need. And if I wanted to add a third color, like a light gray or something like that, I could. I probably wouldn't do a black because it might be too heavy. But now I can draw the shapes that I need using the same colors. So the first one I'm going to do is probably my circle. Because the bar is probably going to go over my circle. So I'm going to do the rulers like we did multiple times in Illustrator. So let me, I guess this one you have to drag. So all you have to do is, click and hold on your ruler, and then you can drag to the edge of the circle. Same from the top, click, hold, drag to the bottom of the circle, just like we've done so many times before. Then I want to make sure I have the color I want selected in my fill with my shape. So I'm going to select my shape tool. The computer is getting a little crazy. Making sure I'm on the right layer. I'm on the newsletter layer, so that's good. So I'm going to click and hold on that solid shape, and I'm going to use the ellipse tool. Now again, me personally, I would use a pen tool, but I figure some of you, like you said, would like to use the shapes. So now we're just going to line that little bullseye up with the horizontal and vertical lines. So we have that solid shape tool, click and hold to get that circular one. Now I'm going to click and hold and pull up, and I'm going to let go. And it doesn't quite fill perfectly, so I could go back and get my arrow, and I can drag my shape a little bit and try to adjust it to make it fill that space better. Now after I've drawn the circle, I want to draw the rectangle. So I'm going to click and hold on that same shape tool, and I'm going to get the rectangle tool. So I'm going to then use the same color so we don't see a difference with no stroke because we don't want to see the stroke. And then I'm just going to click, hold, and drag over, and I'm going to let go. And you will see these red boxes, but if you go up to View, Grids and Guides, you can hide all the guides and hide all the binding boxes and all that, so you can kind of see what it looks like without it. But just know these red things are just the binding box so you know where the shape is. So no one will see any separation between these two colors. And now you have your flag. You could also do this with the pen tool. Now if we look inside, there is a tinier circle, which I think is nice. It adds contrast. How did they get this text to type around that circle? Yes, the type on the path tool. If you wanted to do that, you could do a circle. So we'll do that, and we'll put maybe a puppy or something inside it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just turning off my newsletter layer with the visible eye tool, and I'm going to draw circle hash marks, guides. Let me get on that layer. Have to be on that layer to drag the guides. So now I'm just going to go and do the same thing with this circle. I'm going to draw my guides there so I can see my guides, and then I'm going to turn my layer back on. And now I know this is kind of where I need to, where did it go? So I need to do the bottom one. And now I can turn it on and I can see this is where my other circle would meet. So I'm going to go click and hold and get the circle tool. And instead of having it on, there we go, cancel. Instead of having it green, I'm going to click and hold, and I'm going to, or click, and then I'm going to go down to grassroots, and I'm going to pick my purple for my fill. Then we're just going to line these hash marks up with the item and eyeball it. We'll say we'll end right around here. And now I have my solid circle. Now I think that circle looks a little small, so I think I might actually make it a little bit bigger. They did it probably because they want text to go around it. And now you have the beginning of that flag. So again, to do that so you can kind of see where it is, you're going to have to turn your eyeball off. Then you're going to click on the template layer, because unless you're on that layer, it will not allow you to draw guides for that layer. So we're going to click and hold, and you could even put it to the top if you wanted, top, left, and right, bottom. Then you'll know how big to make your circle. Then we can click your layer back on and click on your newsletter. Then we're going to go get your shape tool, and we're going to pick your color of your purple. Remember to change the color. You can click on it, double click on it, and that'll go to the color picker. But if you know you already have the swatch, like we did, you can click here and change it, or you can actually go over to swatches and change it. So either way is a way that you could change your swatches to purple. Now that we have that purple color for that tool, we're just going to go line the hash marks up, click, hold, and drag, and now you have your purple circle. Those are just to let you know what layer they're on. So when you print, those lines will not print. Yeah, it's kind of scary because you think, oh my gosh, that looks hideous. But it's just to let you know that it's on that layer. They will not print. But if you go to your view and you can, if you go preview, instead, if you go to view, screen mode, preview, then it shows you what it looks like, and you can see there are no red lines. Well, it's just because that's the edge of the, you have a black line around your circle. That means you probably have a stroke then, because if you go to view, screen preview, if I go back to normal, this is helping me with the design. So click on your shape, and do you have a stroke in this box right here, a color? Where my mouse is right here? Okay, so you just take it to 0. Alright, so if you wanted to type on path, again you would click and hold and take your type on path tool, and then you can move it and click on here, and you can actually start typing. You could put the volume and the issue number here or something like that. It may be a little weird. I don't really know if I would type around this, but just so you can see, you'd say grassroots animal rescue. And then now you have grassroots animal rescue. And if I don't like where the text is, you can just rotate your circle, and now you've rotated where your text is. Don't like the text? Click on it, like we've done to rotate things before. Move to the outer corner where you have that double-sided curvy arrow. Click, hold, and rotate, and you can kind of see where it would go, and now you have grassroots animal rescue. It kind of made my circle look a little weird. It shouldn't do it because I didn't distort it. Yeah, it's weird. Looks like it's getting a little different, but I'm not pulling out or changing it. So that's how you could do the flag for the top right here. So you could put your text in here, but remember you have to be careful with the text, because if you do the text tool and you move and you see the text tool with a circle in it, you will now be typing into that box, and you don't want to do that. So what I do often is move it close to it but away, and then I would type out the headline. Now I want to show you some stuff with the body copy, and then we'll come back up to the flag because we're talking about text already. Now when you have an article and it's created in Microsoft Word, you can actually save that article into that folder, and you can place that article onto this page. You don't necessarily have to have, you don't have to type it out. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn off the template background layer because we don't really need it because it's pretty hideous. We were just doing the flag. And if you say you wanted to add more to this, you could actually use your pen tool and then, trace underneath this and then add another shape. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to File, Place, and we're going to pick one of our articles. So if you ever want to just see what it looks like without it, if you go up to View, Screen Mode, Preview, it shows you what it would look like if you were going to print. And then you can always go back. So those are always, they're just there to let you know. So again, that's View, Screen Mode, Preview. And then to go back is normal, and that's just to let you know what the binding box is. I want you to design it on your own. This is just me trying to show you and make you think about the thought process of, if you think about, say you sketch out something and you want to draw it into InDesign, how do you dissect it and realize how you could implement your design? So you want to design it, otherwise that's copying somebody's work. This is just for me to kind of show you how would you dissect this and actually create this. So yeah, you're going to want to do something from your own vision. All right, so now we're back in the normal mode. So we're going to go File, Place, and we're going to pick one of those articles. We're going to go after, let me get there, I have a lot of folders to get through. All right, so I'm going to grab the first one we're going to use is we'll go Dog Jog. Well, no, I take it back. We're going to go, because that one's real small. We're going to go Restaurant Week article. So we're going to say Open. Now the thing you'll see is that you're going to move and your text is going to move with you. You can click once and it will import it, and it will import it in this one column. But that doesn't mean we have to stay in whatever column that it gave us. So again, to do that, you're just going to go to File, Place. I moved and I grabbed the wrong thing. Cancel. We're going to go File, Place, and we're going to pick that article of the Restaurant Week. So Restaurant Week, I can click once. Now if I know I wanted to extend across the whole page, I could just click, hold, and drag a box about how big I think I might want it to be. And again, whenever you see this plus sign, it means that you have more text. So this plus sign will always be on the bottom right where I'm circling. You will have more text than what we see. So to let us see how much text there is, you can pull your box down until that plus sign goes away. Whoops, I actually pulled the box. So we're just pulling the box down, 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 and still has a plus sign. Now in newspaper articles, you're not generally going to have these spaces as much. So another thing is you'll notice that I've dragged all the way down to the bottom, but I still have a plus sign. There's no way I can fit all this in just like this. One, the column is too large. This is not like a paper that you write for your teacher. This is a newsletter. So what we can do is, if you have your text box selected, if you look up top, kind of around the middle, you'll see there is a little icon that has columns. Those are the number of columns. So one way you can get rid of this plus sign, which means you have more text than we actually see, one is to draw the box bigger. The second is to change the number of columns. So I can change this to 4 columns, and now you can see I have 4 columns of text. You'll notice though that I have this terribly trapped white space. When you have modular design, like I said, you want it to look like stacked rectangles and even rectangles. You want usually the top and the bottom of the text to kind of line up. So what you can do to do that is you can drag that bottom text bar up, and you see it's going to keep pushing the text down, and we want it to be as even as possible. Perfectly even would be ideal. If not, you want it at least close to it. Now you'll also notice there's a lot of hyphens in here, which means that we're going to have to go through and fix that. So again, we just did File, Place, and we selected the text box with our black selection arrow, and we went up here to the columns, 1, 2, 3, 4, and now we have 4 columns of text. If you did 2 columns of text, you'd probably have an issue. doing more columns allows us to fit it on the page. I could even go to 5 columns if I wanted, but that's a little tiny, I think, for this. It's not as wide as a newspaper. Now the reason I'm leaving a little bit of space on the bottom of my column right here is if you go through and you look at your story, you're going to see a lot of little weird hyphens. I'm not going to be grading you on your written work because you're already graded on that, but I am going to grade you on if you have hyphens where there are no hyphens. And the other thing is what kind of font did we say is the easiest to read in mass quantities? Sans serif or serif? Serif. What kind of font is this? Sans serif. So what I'm going to grade you on when it comes to this newsletter with your text is it a sans serif or a serif? Do you have hyphens in there? So the first thing we're going to need to do is we're going to need to change this font to a different font because it is not a serif font. So if you click in your article, you can highlight it and we can now change our text. So you're going to get your text tool, or you can click and it usually will change the text tool. And we're going to highlight your text. I said that the body copy could be between, I think, 10 and 12, so I'm going to up it to 10. Ooh, I'm going to leave it at 9. I lied. I'm going to leave it at 9 for this tutorial. And then we're going to go and we're going to change it from Arial to a serif font. A classic font people tend to use a lot is Times New Roman. I personally like Bell MT. Doesn't mean it's going to help your text grade. It just is a font that I do like. So I changed it to Bell MT, and you notice that the font got smaller, so I can now move it back up to that 10-point body copy that we need. Now I'm in a serif font. However, I do have, it says that I have extra space. So I think there might be extra space at the end. So now what I'm going to do is, after I've changed it to a serif font, I'm going to go through and I'm going to adjust and get rid of the hyphens. There are a couple ways you can do this. If there's just one letter missing, you can adjust the tracking, and you can adjust the tracking on it. So here it says packages. I have an ES. I can highlight packages, and I can go to my top, and I can say negative tracking, but then now the word is all scrunched up. So it looks like that's not a good option. So the better option would be if you put your cursor in front of the word that has the hyphen. You can hit the return key, the shift return key, and the shift return key will just bump it to the next line without increasing the space between the lines. So again, I'm going to look for a place that has an unnecessary hyphen, like participate right here. I'm going to hold the shift key, then I'm going to hit the return key once, bumps it down to the next line. Shift key, return, bumps it down. Shift key, return. The other thing you could do is you could adjust the number of columns. I could change the number of columns, but then I'm going to have to see if that really works out in my favor. So you don't want hyphens. Hyphens, look like a mistake when you could just bump the text down to the next line and you can have everything in there. Plus, that usually will help fill out. Now I have consolidated school district filling. So I'm just going through and I'm getting rid of the hyphen. So hold the shift key, return, and that will bump it down to the next line. Other winners, I don't need to have that much of a space, so I can say other winners, and then I can say were grassroots. I don't need that extra space there. And other winners is just weird. It's making it kind of like a column, or excuse me, like a headline. So other winners were, so we might want to change that. Now I'm going to keep going on, getting rid of the hyphens, shift return. You can, you said Illustrator, you mean InDesign? Yeah. You can do the hyphen box. I do this, I'm just a little bit more manual. I like to do things a little more manual than automated, but you can do that in the paragraph box and get rid of hyphens that way. So now I have no hyphens. So I'm going to save before I make too many more changes. So we're going to call it your first initial last name newsletter. So that way we have it. It's always good to save after a few changes. So that way if anything does happen, you still have it. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in my proper folder. So you want to save it to the folder that has all your items for this, so everything is together. So animal rescue, save. Now this is a very large story. You know, a lot of the stories like we looked at in the newsletter were not this long. So if you were going to use this, do you think you might want to use this story on the front or the back or the inside page? It's very long. And we said, you know, when we were looking at those newsletters that you said that it needs to be visual on the front, correct? To kind of draw people in and make them want to look at it. Well, if you have it like this, then not many people, it doesn't give you a lot of space to add a lot of artwork. You only have this much space down here to try to maybe put even your cover lines or your teasers. So what I would consider doing is cutting this and pasting it onto your next page. So instead of redoing everything, you can just click on it and select it, and you can go to Edit, Cut, and then if you use your scroll bar on the right, you can go down and you can paste it for this interior page, because you're not going to have a flag. So if you're not going to have a flag, you're going to have more room to work with. You can add more art or art inside of here. So what we're going to do is we're going to move this to the interior page because, like you guys said, it needs to be visual. It needs to be interesting looking on the front, and having this much text might turn off a few people. So I would consider moving this inside. So again, you're cutting it and then you're pasting it to your interior page. So now we're going to work on adding text here. So what I want you to do is, this was just to teach you how to, remind you how to type on a path tool, but you can do the grassroots animal rescue newsletter if you just want to call it that, or some people will often use the word pause or things like that, but you don't have to give it a cheesy name. It could just be grassroots animal rescue newsletter. A little plain, but you know, I'm not judging you on making a name, I'm more judging you on the design. So again, remember, if we get the text tool, what kind of color do you think we might want to use for the flag name? Yes, I would use white. Purple, I think, would, one, be a little cheesy, two, would be too much dark on dark. So using a white text would be your best option. Now remember, the flag can be a variety and a bigger size. So you can go ahead and pick a larger font, and I'm going to put it in white. So I'm going to change it to white. And I'm going to pick a interesting looking font. Remember, you don't want to use something very thin. Generally, your flags, as we've seen, are going to be a bigger font. Doesn't mean it has to be thick, fat, and bold, but it does definitely need to be a little bit bigger than a little light, thin, scripted font. You also want to think about your target audience. This is an organization about rescuing animals. So I'm going to look. Me personally, I would probably download something off the internet, but I'm probably going to leave it and go with what I have. Now you can use a sans serif font for your flag, or it can be a serif font, because it's not the body copy, so it's not as big of a deal. Remember, if you do move inside the shape, it will start typing in that shape. So one thing could be to start right here and type, although I put it in white so it'd be difficult to see. Or I could make another layer and I could call it text, which I probably would not do, but yeah, so I'm not going to do that. I personally wouldn't do it, but you might want to, but it is an option. So I'm going to click and hold and drag a square. You don't have to, you could just click. And I'm going to say grass roots. And then it actually came up in black. So I'm going to highlight it and change it to white. And I'm going to make the size a lot larger. And I'm going to make my box a little smaller. Oops, too small. And I'm going to move it up into this area. I'm going to put animal rescue in a different size box, so that way if I wanted to change up where it goes, you don't have to just do grassroots animal rescue across. You could do it on the bottom here. So we'll see. I could always just copy this box and paste it, so I have the exact same font, the exact same size if I wanted it. And it's probably not going to all fit in here. It's not. So I'm going to have to then draw the box bigger to get rid of that plus sign. and now it's bigger. Sometimes I've seen people, they'll change and they'll make the first letter bigger, so that way it looks like you could probably set something into it. So, and let's see what that looks like. Probably not something I would do all the time, but ooh, that's too big. And you can bring them closer together if you want. There's a different variety of ways you can play with the text. What are some other options we have with trying to make this text look interesting and have some contrast besides color? So that's a good idea. So he did grassroots very large, so let's try that. So you don't have to make this letter bigger and have them closer together because it is quite similar. So what we can do is we can make grassroots much larger, and then animal rescue, because that, you know, is part of their name, but grassroots is a big part. So we can say grassroots and we can highlight it and we can make it larger. And if I want it to fill up this space but I don't want to get any larger on my text, remember you can increase your tracking if you wanted to. But here we go, grassroots. And I could even do it in a contrasting font if I wanted. If I did that, it might look like a tagline though. So we could say highlight it and say let's go smaller. I would say even smaller. And I don't want my box that big. And I could try to line up the end of my E with the end of their S. And now you have contrast. And if you wanted to be kind of cheesy, you could put puppy paw prints here. Or you can use the beloved pen tool and create grass. Curve it, get rid of it, curve it, get rid of it, and then I could change this and I could make this grass. And I have one, so why not just copy it, paste it, and now I have grass that I could put on here. Paste. Now I don't want all of them going the same direction, so if I did that, I could actually highlight all 3 of these, and now I could copy and then paste, and now I have 6 of these. And you can also copy them and then rotate them. So now that I have this many, and I'll go back and redo this, I'm going to hold the Shift key, I'm going to click on all these little pieces of grass, and then I'm going to copy them. Then I'm going to paste them. Then I'm going to change their color, maybe to a different green. That'd be kind of cool. And then I'm going to rotate them. So I'm going to go Object, Transform, Flip horizontally, and now I have grass going the other direction. So it's not taking as much time, and then I could get more grass, and if I wanted to, I could even have, you know, if the grass were taller, then it might look kind of neat to have the grass go up a little bit over grass roots. You know, you could have it kind of going up over grass roots a little bit if you wanted. So again, all I did was the pen tool and I made like the curve of a grass, and then I can do it and copy it and paste it. Unless you want to keep drawing it, you definitely could. But again, all I did was I took the pen tool, because you know, grass roots, grass, you know. So I just clicked once. Then I clicked up here to curve, and then I curved it, just a little curve. Then I clicked up here to get rid of that handle like we've done before. I clicked down here next to it, and then I curved it up a little bit more. Then I clicked to get rid of the handle. Then I closed it. Then I changed the shape color, or the color. I can go over here and get a different green, so that way it's not all the same green for the grass, because grass is not that way. Grass has different colors. And then now I have that grass root, so I could take this little guy and copy it and then paste it. And then now I have some grass. And I can keep kind of working with it to make it look more like natural grass. So copy, paste, bless you. So now it kind of, I think, you know, maybe it's a little too cheesy, but it definitely fills up this space. You don't have to fill up all the space, you know, in an area, but it does kind of make it look, I think, a little more unique. So I can paste it twice. Now I got 2 of them. And now I can, now I can kind of put them up here and move them around, and now it looks a little bit more like grass. So what I would do is I would probably continue playing with this and adding more grass to make it look more natural. What could we do with this? I'm going to get rid of that text around there. I don't really like that. To flip it like with the grass. So what I did is I took this little guy and I copied it, and if I want to flip it, I can paste it, and then I can go up to Object because I'm changing something about the object. Transform, because I'm transforming it, and flip horizontally. And now it's going the other direction, because why have to draw more with the pen tool than I want to? I can actually just copy what I have, and then I'm getting more variety with it. So then I could copy that and paste it, and if I wanted to, I could paste it again, and then even paste it again, and then now I have 3, and instead of having to paste so many, I could just highlight all of them. So if you draw an imaginary square like you can see I'm doing with my regular arrow, I'm drawing an imaginary square around my grass and I'm copying. Now I can copy 3 and I can paste, and now I have 6. So now I don't have to do as many copy and paste. Now I can take them individually if I wanted to, because I didn't group them, and I could put them in different locations, and that makes it look more grass-like. Which I think is kind of cute. A little, I mean, not super grass-like. I could probably do with more variety instead of just doing it all the same. I could do a different shape and add that different shape in there with a different color, and then you have that space is kind of tying into the grass roots. Like one year a person designed a logo for them where it was grass and they had like a puppy kind of hiding behind the grass. I think that's better. I think doing the grass is better than, like, some people often, if they see 2 O shapes next to each other, they want to turn them into eyeballs. I think that's a little too cheesy. Now I'm personally going to go back and delete this text because I don't really need it, I don't think, here. You could do the volume and issue number. Now you do have to have a volume, issue number, and date in your flag. You could use this empty area right here. You could type it in the circle. Where do you think you would want to put your volume and issue number? If you didn't have the grass, you could put it over here. Where do you think you would want to put your volume, issue number, and date? Okay, at the top. We could put it at the top. Probably similar font color. If we did, purple, I think it would be maybe a little too cheesy. Now we don't want to do it in the same font as the flag because we don't want it to look like it is the flag. It is part of the flag, but we don't want to use it as the title. So I'm going to get probably a thinner, smaller font. And if you looked at when we were looking at the examples, you saw like the headline or the name of the newsletter was big, but the volume and issue number was small, thinner font. So I'm going to take my text tool and I'm going to find a smaller font, maybe a serif, so I have more contrast. So maybe I might go to that Bell MT. If I go to the Bell MT, that's the same that I use as my body copy. So maybe using your same font as your body copy, because if we did a sans serif font, we might run into the issue that it's a conflicting font, not a contrasting font. So I'm going to draw a box and I'm going to say volume 1, issue 1, May 2016. Now you could draw tiny little vertical lines to go between them. That might look kind of clean and classy, so I can add some extra space. Ooh. So again, all I did is I got the text tool. I changed it to a serif font that I knew that I use for my body copy. So that way, again, we have 1, not too many fonts, and 2, it kind of ties everything together. You could go with a different sans serif font. You just want to make sure they are not conflicting, that they're contrasting. So if you did a serif font, if you did this big bold font here, you would definitely need a thinner font with maybe a thick to thin ratio variance for that. So I'm going to go Bell MT because I know that's what I'm going to use for my body copy. And I'm going to say volume, and this is usually in all caps, doesn't have to be though. I'm going to do a couple spaces, 1, 2, 3, 4, issue 1, 2, 3, 4, May 2016. Because me personally, I'm going to consider maybe putting a tiny little white line between them. You don't have to, but I think it might be interesting. So I'm going to, after I'm done with my text, I usually will draw my binding box smaller. Because your binding box is what you create text wraps off of. So I often don't want it to be too large. Now it looks like I am too large here, so I could make my font smaller. So instead of 12, I can go down to maybe 10. Also gives more contrast. Draw my box smaller, and then I'm going to highlight it and put it in white. Click, click, click to highlight. Then I'm going to go to my text fill, which is that big solid one like we've used before. And now I have volume issue number up top. Now to make it look more clean, I might move it down to where it's level with the T. Or I could have it in a different area. But you don't want it just hanging out above it. It's nice if it's in line with something else. It makes it look like it's supposed to go there. Now you could cut out an animal and put their little puppy head here. That's what I would probably do. So I'm going to save it. So I personally would probably put like a puppy in there, or maybe a puppy graphic. So I'm going to look at my art that I have for this and see what kind of options I have. What else could we put in that circle besides a picture of a puppy? You could put the logo. Unfortunately, they do not have one. But if they had one, that would be a great idea to put the logo there. Perfect idea. I'm going to see if I can cut out this girl and this dog and maybe put them in there. So remember, I've told you it's not uncommon to use Photoshop and InDesign. Actually, it's very common to use InDesign and Photoshop together. So I'm going to open this up in Photoshop and cut it out, and then try to paste it in here. Now it's probably going to be too small. I might need to make the circle larger, or only show part of the person. So I just asked it to open it up, so we'll see if this works. You could also put like a puppy paw print in there. You could put another circle in there or something. So here is this little graphic I have, and I'm going to see about cutting her out. Luckily, dark lines against a light background. So just like we've done before, I just clicked once with the magic wand to select it. All right, so it's just going to be like we've done before. We're going to get the magic wand, 1, 2, 3, 4 down. And we're going to get the magic wand tool and click once on the outside. Now you can see I clicked in an area where it only selected part of the gradient. So if I wanted to add this extra part on the outside, what would I need to do? Shift key adds the plus. That's where that plus is coming from. Or you can change it up here. But I'm just going to hold the shift key and click again, and now I've selected all of it. And the first time I clicked it, I selected everything. So I just clicked in a slightly different area this time, and it didn't select everything. Now currently it's selecting the background, but we want it to select the dog and the girl. So that means if you're changing something about your selection, you can go up to your select menu and say inverse, or Shift Command I is the hotkey. And now we can see the little marching ants are going around the dog and the girl. So now we just need to hit Command J to copy that and put it on its own new layer. So remember, you have the marching ants around her, Shift Command I, or select menu inverse. And then we need to go and we need to then say Command J, because remember, Command J is like copy, but it actually copies it to its own layer. So now if you look in your layers window, you'll see that you do have two layers, and you actually do have a background layer missing in layer 1. So if we turn off the visibility on the background layer with that eyeball, now you can see that you did cut her out. So now we're going to save it as it works as a PSD or a PNG. Either works. So let's go up and say File, Save As, because we're going to save it as a different file extension. PNG or PSD will work, either one. So if you go under Format, it usually will come up as Photoshop because you have two layers. That's fine. Or you can save it as a PNG. Either will work, and you're going to maximize compatibility. Now I'm curious, I'm going to look at how large this is. 44 inches by 32 inches. Now when we import that into InDesign, it's going to be quite large. So if you ever want to see how big an image is, you can go up to image, because you're changing something about that image. Image size, and we're going to want to make it smaller because that is going to make our lives quite difficult. I mean, you can always do the object fitting, but I'm going to say let's move it down to maybe 5 inches in width. I mean, that's even still going to be large, but in case I end up wanting to use it somewhere else, I could. So let's go image, image size, and under width, let's put 5, and it should say inches off to the side, and we're going to say OK. It just made it look like it's tiny. It's not tiny. And then we're going to save it again because we made a change. And after we change the image size to a smaller image size, we can then go to our InDesign. So we can close this and go to InDesign and import it into InDesign. So I've already saved it, so I'm going to close it. So then once you get that clean, we're going to open it up in InDesign. So remember, we do have to say show view options because we did not delete that background layer. So I'm going to hide Photoshop, and I am going to go to, and we can see I have no background there. I'm going to go back to InDesign. So let's select our circle, and we can have it be a color and a piece of art. So we're going to say select it with our arrow tool. We're going to go up to object because we're changing what this object content is going to be. So we're going to go to object content graphic. So select the purple circle with your arrow, black arrow, and we're going to go up to object content graphic. Now it's going to have the X on it. So now it can be a color and it can be an image like you see down here. So what we're going to do is we're going to now say place. So you can say file place with it selected or command D. And we do want to show import options in case it tries to import both layers. So we're going to click on show import options, and then we're going to navigate to your girl and puppy PSD or PNG, whichever one you saved it as. And we're going to say open. My background layer is off, which is great. If not, you can turn your background layer off by clicking that eyeball like you see me doing up here. Clicking it off lets me have that empty background. And then I'm going to say OK. Now she's going to be quite large because she was about 5 inches in width. But what we can do is we can go up to Object. We can say Fitting, Fit Content Proportionately. And now I have her, but she's kind of rotated, so I can go up to Object, Transform, Rotate, 90 degrees, and now I have her in that circle. And I think that's kind of cute. I don't think it's too cheesy. Maybe it is. I don't know. So now you kind of have that girl in there. So you can kind of see how you can design a flag. Is it super amazing? No, but it is definitely better than just one rectangle, right, like we've seen. If I wanted to, I could even make this circle a little bigger. I'm making it a little bigger. And then if I wanted to, I can make her bigger. I can say fitting, fit content proportionately, and she's a little bit bigger. And then I can kind of move the circle around a little bit. And I think it looks better a little bigger, personally, instead of that smaller one, because they probably had their circle smaller because they typed around the circle, whereas here I think that looks pretty good. Now, if I were doing this for me, I would probably add one more grass shape and fill in my grass more, so that way it looks more complete. But I think it's nice. You have some contrast in your text. We have big and small, and we did line them up. Actually, the grass S needs to go over just a little bit more. There we go. Which actually now is too close to my volume, so now I need to move this over. Sure, I can do that again. I just thought it might be kind of neat. It might be kind of cheesy, but I can show you the grass part again, definitely. I think it looks good. Well, I mean, ish. All right, so we're going to use the pen tool, and it's only 4 clicks, so it's not too bad. And it's kind of you. You're not tracing anything. You're just making a grass shape. So with the pen tool selected, I don't want to have a white fill because it'll be kind of difficult for me to see what I'm creating down here or up there. If it's up here, it's not going to be that bad. So we're just going to take the pen tool, and I think I'm going to just change the color to a different green. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to click on this white box, click, click, and then I'm going to pick a different green so I can have some more variety. And then I'm going to say OK. So now we can see that my fill is going to be a green. So again, that's down here in your tool palette. We're going to click, click on that, and then adjust your slider to find a green. And then what we're going to do is, this is kind of remedial grass shape. I'm not getting super creative, but so we're going to click once, and then we're going to click up and hold, and we're just going to curve it, just a slight curve, nothing too crazy, just a slight curve, and let go. Then we're going to delete the handle. So to delete the handle, like we've done before, we're going to move the pen to the anchor point. The anchor point is that square, and you'll see it has that little V on the bottom right of your pen tool, which means that yes, if I click there I can get rid of my handle. Then I'm going to click back down here near where I started my first click, but a little bit away, and I'm going to click and hold, and I'm going to curve it again to have a different grass shape, a different curve. Then I'm going to delete that handle again by moving to that anchor point and clicking once. And then I'm just going to click over here and complete the shape. You can tell that you're going to complete the shape, one, because you're clicking on that first click that you did, and two, you see there's a little circle in the bottom right of the pen tool. It means you're closing it. So I'm going to close it. And now if I use my arrow tool, you can see I have another piece of grass. And instead of having to use the pen tool again, I'm all about thinking smarter, not harder. We can copy it, so we can go up to Edit, Copy, and then I can say Edit, Paste, and then I can use the move arrow and move it to a different, stretched it on accident. I can click on it and move it to a different location, and now I have more grass. And then you can just click on it and copy it and paste it. Copy. I can say paste into place if I don't want to have it jump all the way down to the bottom, and then I can just move it. Oopsie, I dragged it. To flip the other way, what I can do is if I have it selected, since I'm changing something about the object, I can go up to Object, Transform, Flip horizontally. And then now it's like I have a new blade of grass, but it's the same blade, as just I copied it, which I think is easier than having to do a lot of it. So I do want you to do the grass part. So I'm going to give you a couple minutes and I'm going to stop recording so in case you need me to come help you with the pen tool, and then we're going to move on. So I'm going to, all right, so we're going to place that dog jog article on here. We talked about it, that it was better to maybe have the article that was smaller on the front, so that way we could have more visuals, because we can do like teasers like we saw some that had teasers for a whole column all the way down, some had teasers on the bottom. So let's first see how big that story is so we can kind of see what kind of space we're working with. So we're going to go up to File, Place, or Command D. Now we don't need to show import options with text. It's going to give you some more information about it. So I'm just going to click that off because I don't need it, because I'm not importing something with a cutout background. And then I'm going to get the dog jog article. And I'm going to click once. And then I'm going to see how much text I have. So it's not a whole lot. So it's definitely better than what we were looking at with that other article. How many columns do you think we should try to make this? And the thing is, let me show you this as well. I should explain this. Just because you see 1, 2, 3, 4 columns on the width of this doesn't mean I have to do 4 columns. I could have this be, excuse me, I could have this be 2 columns. And then again, I could just pull this up and change the sizing so it is more of a regular rectangle. Or I could have it 3 columns. Which one do you think looks better? Do we want it to go all the way across? Do we want it to be smaller? What do you think? 3 columns? Okay. So I could even have it 3 columns on here, and then I could even add some artwork to it. So unfortunately, I don't have any pictures from the dog jog. So we can just put a picture in there, but when you design this for real, you are definitely going to want a picture that is relating to what the article is. They just didn't have any. So I'm going to have it 3 columns, and then I'm going to get a photo that I gave you. I'm just going to pick a puppy picture, I guess. So I'm going to say file place, and I'm going to get a picture of a dog. I'm going to get this dog. This poor dog got hate mail on Facebook because they said she was super ugly and nobody would want her. And I thought that was horrible because it also kind of looks like my dog. Not quite, but my dog has blue alopecia, and so she's missing a lot of hair. But I already had 3 dogs and 2 cats, so I didn't want to adopt her. But thankfully this dog did get adopted. But I cannot believe adults were like trashing this dog on Facebook. It was ridiculous. So I'm going to make the box smaller, and I'm going to, object fitting, fit content proportionately. It does get a little smaller. Now remember, we talked about adding a 1 or 2 point stroke around the photo. So with the box selected, when you have an image, you want to bring the box close to the edge of the line, because when you add a stroke, the stroke is going to go where the bounding box is, which is that red box, and not where the edge of the photo is. So we want to have our box to the edge of the photo, and we're going to go up to the top, and we're going to see stroke of none. I'm going to say black, 1 point, and then I can move the dog here if I wanted to. Now I could have her fill up this whole space, so I can make the box a little bigger and say object, adjust my fill frame proportionately. But I'm losing the text, right? So again, we're going to make the dog about the size of the column, but we need to change the fitting. So when we do that, we're going to have to make our text box bigger because it's going to take up more space. So with the dog selected, we are going to go to our text wrap. You should have a text wrap on the right. If you don't see that, you can go up to Window, Text Wrap, and it'll open up your text wrap window. Now you can see right now with the dog box selected, we can see that the text is going over the artwork in this little icon, which means we have no text wrap. If we go to the next one, it's the binding box. So I'm going to click on that, and you're going to see now the text jumps away. So I do now have a plus sign. So that means I need to then drag the text box down until that plus sign goes away. Now if you have text go underneath the dog, and it looks like I have empty space here, so I'm going to delete that up so I can move my box. When you have text beneath the dog, we need to make sure it's more than 1 or 2 lines, otherwise there's no real point. What else do you notice is a problem with my current text wrap on the dog? Where do I have extra text? Yes, and that looks hideous because it says B Pro something video for all. So what we're going to do is we're going to select the dog text box, and we are going to increase the text wrap. So we are going to now go over here, and you can see there's a square with an arrow pushing up, a square with an arrow pushing down, and left and right. That means that those are the areas that you're going to add a text wrap. If you see in the middle, right where I'm circling my arrow, there is like a link, kind of like a chain. What that means is that currently these are all linked together. So if I wanted to, I could adjust them all at one time, and then it'll make it disappear. Or if you only need to adjust left or right, you can always unclick that chain and break it, and only adjust them individually. So again, I'll do that again. So we moved our dog. We moved our dog up into the text, but it was currently the text did not respect the dog. So we're going to go to our window, text wrap, and it'll open up your text wrap window, which is right here on the right. And then we're going to have the dog selected, and we're going to go and say wrap around bounding box, which is however big the box is of the dog. So now we notice that there's some weird text on the side. So we need to increase our text wrap to get that text to respect the space of the dog. So we can then go and say increase by using the up arrow, and now it jumped it down. I also think it needs to move closer, further away from the bottom. It's kind of close to that black frame. So I'm going to increase it again, and you can see it's pushing that text down a little bit away from the photo. So that way you can see a little bit more white between the box and the text. Now when I did this, it did increase the size of the story. So now I'm going to have to go back to the text box, because you can see I have the plus sign right here on the right bottom, which means I have more text. So I'm going to click, hold, and drag down until it disappears. Then I'm going to try to line it up. Looks like I have an extra space underneath the line, so I'm going to delete that. It looks like I can't get rid of it. So I'm going to move it up a little bit. Nope, too far. There we go. And then I'm going to save it. And every article is also going to need a headline. What do you also notice about this body copy as well? What are some issues that we have with this body copy of this story? There are some hyphens in it, but also, is it a sans serif or a serif? Sans serif, and we need it in a serif format. So we're going to have to highlight all of it and change it to whatever we use for our body copy. Your body copy needs to be consistent with all your stories. So I used Bell MT on my last one, so I'm going to highlight my text, and I'm going to go up to the text tool, and I'm going to say Bell MT, and I had it at, I believe, 10 point. And we want to make sure your body copy is always the same size. And now I have it in a serif font. Now my question is, do you think we need a cut line with this image? Do we need to let people know who this dog is or more about this dog? It might make sense to be like, so-and-so is available for adoption. Or if this was from the event, telling us who is walking or doing the dog jog. So cut lines, I'm going to show you how to do those, because some photos tell the whole story and some do not. I cannot remember this dog's name, but I'm going to show you how to do a cut line, because you're going to need a cut line for some of your images, because they're probably not going to be as self-explanatory as they could be. So that's something that you might be able to, compensate for by adding a cut line. So we are going to change that, and we are going to add another text box. So the way that you get a cut line box is similar to the dog. We are going to make another text box, and generally your cut lines are in a sans serif font that's bold. Why do you think they often put the cut line, which is always under the photo or beside, never above? Why do you think people put their cut lines in a bold sans serif font? Yes. Totally. Exactly. So it stands out, so we don't read it as part of the article. So what I can do is I can get my text tool, and I can draw it about the width of the dog, and then I can put it in a bold sans serif font. My revolution from my flag would be too large, so I'm going to look for a smaller, maybe Arial rounded bold, and I can say Susie is available for adoption. Now that's quite large. 12 point is bigger than my body copy. Generally your cut line is the same size as your body copy or smaller, so I'm going to go to 9 point font. And then what I have to do is, if I do not put a text wrap around this box, look what happens when I put the text in there. It disappears. So what I have to do then is I need to, one, make sure the box is the length of the photo. Then I'm going to add a text wrap on the box for the cut line and move it a little bit closer to the dog. And now I have a text wrap around it. Now it looks like the text is too close. If I zoom in, you can see the text is too close. So I'm going to add maybe a text wrap for the bottom, not the top. I don't need it to be further away from the dog. I need it to be further away from the body copy. So I'm going to unlink it, and I'm going to say increase how much I have on the bottom. And now you can see it adds more, and then it respects the space. So I'll do that again. But you would also have to adjust your box and make it fit all the text in there. So this is kind of weird looking. Can we move it up? No, we cannot. Let's move it down then. Ooh. Alright, so to do the cut line with the text box, it's the same thing. Let me zoom in a little bit more. So I'm going to delete this one and do it again. So we're going to find a serif font. It looks like I need more on this one. Why is it not moving? There we go. Let me move it back. So I'm going to make a text box. Click and hold and drag, and I'm going to look for a sans serif bold font. We don't want it to be the same as the flag. We want some variety. Whatever cut line font you use, you have to use for all the cut lines. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to pick a Arial rounded bold. 12 point is too large. I'm going to go down to 9 point, and I can say Susie is 2 years old and available for adoption. She loves cats. I don't know. So now I'm going to make that box a little bigger, and I'm going to add a text wrap to it. So I'm going to move it up, and you're going to see we want your cut line box to be the width of the photo. So I'm going to have to move it down a little bit. And now I'm going to add a text wrap to it. I don't really need a text wrap too much on the top, because if I do that, it's going to push it away from the dog. So I'm going to go to the text wrap, and I'm going to break the text wrap. I'm going to apply it to the bounding box first. Then I can see what I need to adjust. So it looks like first I need to make this bigger because it's going to be too big. She loves cats. So that's a little big. I'm going to go maybe down to 8 point. Let's see if I can get everything to fit. Alright, so however big your bounding box is where it starts adding the text wrap. So that's why I'm moving it closer to the cut line. So I'm going to unlink the text wrap, and I'm going to increase the text wrap on the bottom and on the right, because that's where I have that provided for all dogs. Now I do also have a B up here. So where do I need to adjust my text wrap? On the dog or on here to get rid of this B? Which text wrap do I need to adjust to get rid of this B up here? Dog or cut line? Dog. So I don't need to increase it everywhere, because if I increase it everywhere, it's going to actually push away my cut line. So the only side of this text wrap I need to adjust is really the right. So I could do a couple things. I could just make the box bigger and fill up the whole column, and then adjust my size and say object, fitting, fill frame proportionately. Or I could just increase the text box, or the text wrap. I think increasing the box size worked, so I'm going to leave it. But now I have the B right here by the cut line. So now I'm going to drag the cut line box. Undo. Let's click off. I'm going to move the text wrap box, the cut line box to be the extension of or the width of the image, because that's what we do for cut lines. Now it looks like I do have B provided as by itself for some reason. And when I tried to delete it up, now I have it up, and now I have it lined up, and now you have an article. So that's how you can put in text and artwork and have the text respect the artwork so it doesn't go over the artwork. Now what else would you need for this kind of article? title or a headline. Headlines are often sans serif as well because they are, again, contrasting the body copy. I have seen some in serif font, so I'm probably going to use the same font as my cut line. So I'm going to drag it, text box the whole width. Your headline has to be the entire width of your story. So sometimes that means we have to add extra words, make the font bigger, but the biggest headline should be at the top of the page, and then they get kind of smaller as they go down the page, because the most important story is at the top of the page. So now I'm going to get my Arial rounded bold. I definitely want higher than 12. I'm going to try 30. Second, ooh, that looks ugly. And it's in capital letters. Second annual dog jog at, no, I can't get at North Farm. Second annual dog jog. I'm going to try a different font. That looks too childish to me. So I'm going to try to find something else. Arial black, maybe. Second annual dog jog. I could increase the tracking and increase the font size to make it fill up the space more. Second annual dog jog. But we don't want it to be so big that it competes with your flag. So probably I'll leave it at, I could maybe go down to 28 and then dog jog. So headlines, remember, are sentence fragments. You're not going to write a complete sentence. Let's see. Yeah, you could say for charity. And it's a little big, but I can then change the font size and bring it down a little bit until charity comes in. Charity doesn't fill all the way over, so I can highlight it. And what could I do? Because I can't increase the font size because then it'll go off the page. What can I do to make sure everything fills over to the right? What would I need to adjust? Tracking? Alignment could, if you did it, it would probably shift it over and then we'd have more space on this side. So we're going to adjust the tracking. So remember, the tracking is up here where it has 2 letters and a horizontal line. I'm just going to increase the tracking, and increasing it to 20 fills my space. I'm going to drag my box smaller, and then I'm going to move it down closer to my story. Now you would want to make sure that you adjust and have no hyphens, but then this is a story on your page. Now we do have a lot of empty space, so we could put like another color bar down here if you wanted, and then put some issue numbers and information here. We could make it smaller and do a whole column here for teases. If we were going to do teases, where do you think we should put them? Do we want them up top in this empty space up here? Do we want them down here and then have to fill the top and this empty space right here? What do you think would be best? Top? Probably here the top would be good because it's going to be kind of hard to get a story with this curvy line up here. But I could do some kind of treatment up here and have my teases up here. So, what do you think? Would we put like a color bar here and put some tiny pictures? That's an option. So, any other ideas? Just put them there and each one be a different color. Have a solid color. What do we think? No color and just the pictures and the text. So you have contrast. Let's try the box and see how it goes. So I'm going to draw a box and I'm going to try adding maybe a gradient in it. So I'm going to show you how you can do a gradient. So I'm going to draw a box. You would just need to at least extend your headline more closer towards the circle, but yeah, you could do that. But it's not going to go underneath it, but at least go as close as it can to it, and then that would be better. So if I wanted to do this box, I could, and I could say object transform, or object arrange send to back, and then I could put my teases in here. Now you can also do a gradient. A gradient is an option in here as well. It is a little bit trickier to do a gradient in InDesign. It's not quite the same. I would have to drag the colors I want into here, and then I would draw it, and then I would have my, you should have your gradient. So if it doesn't send to back, there's two reasons why. Is it the same color as the other binding boxes? Because it could be on a layer, a different layer. So you can always click on it, and if it's the same binding box, like mine's all of mine are red, then I know it's on the same layer. If your rectangle you just drew is a different color, then that means it could be that it is on a different layer, or you didn't have it selected when you asked it to go to the back. Okay? So to draw or to do a gradient is a little bit different. If you click on the gradient icon, it'll open up your gradient window. Or you can go up to Window, should have Gradient, Color, Gradient. The thing about it is it always comes up black and white. That's just the way it is. Under Type, you can go to Linear or Radial. You don't have as many options with your gradient as you did in your other software. To add the color, you're going to have to open up your swatches, and you're going to drag the color here, because you'll notice if I click, it won't let me change it. So to get the colors to change in the gradient, you have to go to your swatches, and then I can click, hold, and drag a color here. Whoa, what? That is my computer. That's not good. So I can go there and drag a color. If I wanted to, I could make it green to purple. So I could add a purple swatch here and move it, and now I have green to purple. So a little bit of white that I'm going to delete. Your gradient is over here on the right, or excuse me, left. Tired. Gradient is on the left, or you can go up to Window, Color, Gradient. What is the deal? I'm just going to turn this down. I could move it and have white in there if I wanted. And then after you get the gradient the way you like it, you just have the box selected and drag your line. Drag the gradient box. Drag the gradient box to it, and now you have the gradient. Now, I don't think that gradient looks good. I personally would not use that gradient, but I just wanted to show you how to do a gradient. You drag this gradient square. So, you don't have this? Go to Window, Color, Gradient. Yours didn't pop up when you grabbed this box? It might be on the side. But when you click on this, it should open this box up. If it doesn't, you can always go to Window, Color, Gradient. Is it what? It usually pops up black and white. And then you change the colors. You have to open up the swatches, because it unfortunately doesn't let you click on it and change it. So you have to go open up your swatches, and then you can drag colors into there, and then that's the color. So then if I want this gradient that I just created to, and if you want it, you can change the slider, and that changes how much of the color you see. Then you can click on the gradient square and drag it to the box, and now it changes it to your new gradient. And that color is even worse. So I think it's a little busy. I probably wouldn't do the gradient because now it's competing with your grassroots. But I wanted to show you how to make a gradient in this software because it is a little bit different than Photoshop. But then if you wanted to, you could then import another tiny picture and put some text next to it, put some text next to it, and then you would have your tees. Then you would have to kind of fill the bottom. And you don't always have to do stories. Like, you'll notice that I gave you a piece of art that I thought could be used. Where is it? Here. This image of just a list. I figured you could make it smaller and maybe put it down at the bottom, and you can have that be like the list of what they need, you know, because they definitely need donations a lot. So you could maybe put it down here and have it be the thing that has the list of what they need. Let's make this box smaller. So it doesn't always have to be always text, text, text. Remember, it can be art as well. So if I wanted to, I could try to make it larger and maybe say object fitting. Let's see how it fits. Fit content proportionately. It's a little small, so maybe it is going to be a little bit smaller than I anticipated. So maybe it is going to be 2 columns, and I can say object fitting. And then I could use the text tool and I could type on here and say, bless you. I could type up what they need. Actually, I'm going to change it, fitting fill frame proportionately. I could say we need in white text. So this is just options of things that you can think about doing. So I could get the text tool, and then I could say we need donations. And then I could highlight it, maybe change it to white because I'm going to put it on that black that blue sky. And I could put it here and say we need donations, and maybe center it up a little bit, change the font. I would change the font and make it bigger. And then you could type in a text box and put the list of things they need here. It adds a little bit of art. It doesn't have to be just a list on a colored box. So remember, you can use art to be a place for you to put text. So that is an option. Then you would just have to figure out how to fill this space down here. Maybe you have another little article or information about an event. Like you guys wrote press releases about an event. Those are usually pretty short. You could maybe do a headline here and then do a 2-column story here because we have a 3-column here. And then you have your teases up top, and then you're kind of done with your design. So that's just kind of showing you how you could, you know, do the cover to a newsletter. Now remember, you're going to want to tie the front to the inside. What are some ways we could let people know that these 2 pages go together? We don't want to do the whole thing here, right? Because that's going to be too much. So what could we do? Yeah, I mean, we can use the same fonts. Use the same fonts on the body copy and the same fonts on the headline. That definitely will work. Instead of doing such a really big thing up top, you could just do maybe a thin, small green bar and just say the volume and the issue number and the name of the publication, not this big. Or maybe you could do a green bar and then add that little girl next to it. So maybe you do a small green bar and you fill it with the grassroots color we put in this. Maybe that's the color you use. That way it ties it because it has the same color. No stroke. And then maybe I copy this little circle and paste it, but make it maybe smaller or just hanging out in the corner. But then that's going to be kind of hard to design around a tiny circle. So you could maybe have it here, maybe not. Change the fitting. So you want to make sure that there's some way we know these 2 pages go together. Using the same fonts, the same treatment of fonts is important. That can definitely help out. So this is kind of just a tutorial on how you can kind of do a newsletter flag. You do get points for this, for turning it in, so I'm going to give you the rest of class to kind of finesse it a little bit. Make sure that you don't have hyphens in the body copy, that you have the headline going the whole width of the article, that you have a cut line in there, that it is a bold sans serif font, that you have your flag up top. You don't have to add the teases, but I would like to see a gradient in there so I know that you were able to change a gradient. So that's kind of what I'm looking for you from today. You don't have to have this down here on the bottom, but if you want to practice, you know, for your upcoming newsletter, you definitely can. But this is what I need for you by the end before you leave.